All right, let's get started. Come here, come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. All right, I'm going to lead us all in prayer. Father God, thank you for this day. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for a gathering of people that are looking for help, looking for grace, looking for your wisdom. We just ask that you open up our eyes, you give us clarity, and we ask that at the end of all of this that we become closer to you. That is the goal of this, and we ask you to help us, and we ask that you give us strength. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. All right, I want to start off by making a correction for those of you who were in the Bible study last week, or 4 weeks ago. I was talking about the word hypocrite, and I was thinking of stage plays, and I was talking, and I instantly said Shakespeare, but the word hypocrite came long before Shakespeare, because they were talking about it in Jesus' time. Shakespeare was like the late 1500s, early 1600s. What I was meaning to say, and when I was thinking about stage plays, it came from the Greeks who also did stage plays. And the word hypocrite was that first meaning of it was like a stage player, someone who performed on stage. And most of them during Greek time had masks. And so some players on the stage had multiple masks, and they were different characters. And so they had two scripts, hypocrite. And later that transformed into a meaning in our society where it is someone who claims to be moral, but is really a wolf in sheep's clothing. Somebody who proclaims to be something, but they're really not. And they get that far back from someone who's wearing a mask, pretending to be this character, but really behind, that's not who they really, really are. And that's when Jesus calls them hypocrites. He is saying that y'all create the standard that you're moral, but you're really not. And anyway, it did not come from Shakespeare, and it came from the Greeks who came right before Jesus. And in Jesus' time was when the Romans had taken over the Greeks. So, in view of everything that has happened over the last few days with the person that I know that has passed away, and many of you know that or you don't know that, I just want you to know that some of my message tonight is probably going to be related to that. And in fact, it's the only thing I've been thinking about lately. I said this in a meeting last night, but this is the first death that I'm having to go through that I'm sober. So in the past, when people died, I would be drunk, I would be high, and now I'm just going through the fact that I had so many conversations with him, and I knew that he was struggling, but no matter what I did, it's still not my fault. You understand? I mean, it's not. I know his sponsor's been struggling. Like, what did I say? What did I not say? But we're grown, and we make our own decisions. And it is hard. When you're in drug court, you're around people all the time. And so I got very, very close to this guy, and I've known him now solid for about 2 years. And it's been an interesting journey, because when I first found out that he passed, it just rocked me. Like, I told the guy who told me, I was like, "You're not joking with me right now, are you?" And anyway, if you see me shaking, if you see me a little nervous, that's because for the last couple of days I've been trying to keep myself calm and trying to wrap my brain around this did happen, and I can't skip a beat. I got to get up and face the day. I got to keep, because I don't know about y'all, but I've had so many people die, and it was always the excuse why I was so drunk and high all the time. And if I let myself get too down, or if I let myself get too stressed out, then I want to go use. So I have to have balance. I can cry, but I can't cry all day long. I can get stressed, but I'm going to have to reduce the level of stress so that I'm not so overwhelmed all of the time. Okay, to start off, we're going to be, like I said, in John chapter 13. And I went over this last time, but in view of everything that happened, I feel like this is something that I'm going to bring into this message as well. So John chapter 13, the subtitle is Jesus Washes His Disciples' Feet. Okay, so we're going to go down to, hold on just a minute. Will you bring me a drink, please, some water? Sure. Thank you. We're going to go down to verse 9 and 10. Oh, no. Verse 6 and 7. Okay, here's what's going on. So Jesus is about to die, and he only has a few days left, and he's trying to center in on what the most important things that he wants them to know. And he knows he's only got a little bit of time, and he's gone. And so it's like a teacher that's cramming at the end of the semester and letting you know right before your final, these are the most important things. So he gathers his disciples around, and he undresses, has just an inner garment on, and he starts to get water together, and he starts to wash his disciples' feet, which is something that was degrading and gross, and they were blown away by what was going on. So he washes a few disciples' feet, and he gets to Peter, and that is where we are at this moment. He gets to Peter, and it says in verse 6, he came to Simon Peter, who said to him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? Jesus replied, You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand. You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand. Okay, here we are. Peter didn't want Jesus to wash his feet because Jesus was Lord. He had raised people from the dead. He had walked on water. And Peter was his disciple. Peter was a nobody who was a fisherman. And Jesus came by and gave him attention. And when he gave him attention, it changed his life. All the other religious leaders didn't pay attention to the lowly people in town. In fact, they made everyone feel less than. And here is Jesus giving this guy attention that he's never had before, and it changed his life. And now he wants to wash his feet. So Jesus comes up to start washing his feet, and Peter says, Are you going to wash my feet? And Jesus says, You do not now realize what I am doing, but later you will understand. In life, just like I said last Bible study, there are many, many moments where you are going to understand from God, you do not now realize what I'm doing, but later you will understand. In your walk with God, if you need to know every single thing that's going to happen every single time, that's not faith. That's not trust. If you see everything clearly, you don't have to trust it. When I sit down on this couch, I know I'm not going to fall. I know it. That's solid. I can see it. I know it. That's not faith. Peter has this resistance, and Jesus says, you do not now realize what I'm doing. And I don't have enough time to explain it. And even if I explained it, you're not on the level yet to where you will understand. You don't know what I'm doing right now, but later you will understand. There have been doors in my life that have closed. I knew this was going to happen this way, and it didn't. I had set everything on it. Relationships, businesses, things that I thought were going to happen. And in an instant, they closed. When that door closes, you can stand there in frustration. You can demand that you get an answer. Or you can walk by faith and say, if this door is meant to be closed, I'm okay with that. Because whatever you have for my life, I know it's right around the corner. I had got a job offer at a rehab. I put in my 2 weeks notice. Something fell through that is even hard to explain. And I ended up not getting that job. And I remember I sent Catherine a text and I said, no matter what, I still trust God. I'm frustrated. Now I'm going to have to tell drug court I don't have a job right now. I tried to do everything the right way. I put in my 2 weeks notice and everything. This one fell through. They wanted me to drive around and pick people up all over the state and bring them to rehab. Where I work now lets me teach. So I never was going to get this job. But instead of being frustrated, I told her, no matter what, I'm still going to trust him. Right around the corner, I got the job at Promises. And they have me doing stuff that job was not going to have me doing. And y'all all know this is me. This is my gift. This is what I was born to do. And I'm now working at a place that I get to maximize my gift every day that I work there. I, in the past, would have been frustrated. I would have been down. But we have always thought this. When you pray, if God says yes, it happens. If he says no, then it doesn't happen. And you're just praying, okay, that must mean no, that must mean yes. And you try to dictate and try to figure out everything that's going on based on that. But that's not where trusting God comes in, okay? Trusting God means I don't know what's good for me. You know what's good for me. So if this person that's in my life right now, if you want to take him or her out of my life, I trust you to do that. If that business was not for me, I'm not going to throw a temper tantrum. I'm not going to be immature in my faith. He has earned the right to me to trust him. And if you have any kind of the history that I have, of where God has protected you from such insane things, I could be in prison for the rest of my life. I should be dead like so many of my friends, and I'm not. And I count all of that to God. I give him all of that credit. And so when I come to this issue now that I'm facing, he has earned the right for me to say, I don't understand what's going on right now, but I trust you. And later, if you need me to, you'll let me know. The disciples were following Jesus, and he would kind of hint that he was going to die, but they didn't understand it. And he walked on water. He raised people from the dead. And then they come to arrest him. And he could have spoke to them and they would have all died. And they come to arrest him and he puts up no fight. And the disciples are like, what is going on? So Peter pulls out a knife. He cuts off the ear of one of the soldiers. And Jesus grabs the ear, puts it back on the soldier, and tells Peter, put your knife away. This has to be done. So Peter's all boasting to Jesus, like I told y'all last time. Like he's telling Jesus, I'm going to go to prison for you. I will die for you. And anytime you hear a sermon about Peter, it's always about him denying Jesus. But they missed this part. That night when he got arrested, he was ready to fight. There were soldiers there. They were armed. He pulled out a knife. He cut that guy's ear off. And if Jesus hadn't put that ear back on, who knows how that would have ended. That night, that moment, Peter was ready to do what he promised Jesus he was going to do. I'll die for you. I'm not going to let him take you. But his Lord, who he trusted, he said, put the sword away. And because he was obedient, he put the sword away. Jesus healed the ear. And then without any argument whatsoever, Jesus said, if y'all are looking for me, take me, leave everybody else alone. And without putting an argument up, without putting in a fight, Jesus gave himself up. And here's where it spins out of control. They don't understand what he's doing. He tried to explain it to them, but they weren't prepared. And they would have done everything they could to stop it from happening. And so they didn't understand. It was written in Scripture in the past that this was going to happen. He was going to willingly be a sacrifice. It said in old Scriptures hundreds of years before Jesus came that he wasn't going to put up an argument. And so they're sitting back. They've been hanging out with him for 3 years straight. They quit. They don't even work anymore. They hung out with him 24 hours a day. And in an instant, he gives himself up. They know the Romans, what the Romans do. The Romans were brutal when they killed people. Crucifixion is crazy. It is brutal. And that's what they did. And it was a deterrent. So people knew, don't mess with the Romans. This is what you're going to get. And they would have it on the side of the city. So when people were walking from town to town, they see them all there. You enter this city and you screw up, this is what you're going to get. The Jewish leaders connected with the Romans at that time, because the Jewish leaders had a little power. The Romans had taken over Israel and Jerusalem, but they let them do some things, but they didn't have the power to crucify. Only the Romans had the power to do that. So Jesus is getting this uprising going, and the Jewish leaders are upset because people are not listening to them anymore. They're listening to him. I have all these degrees. I know everything. I know this book, and all these people are not coming to me anymore. See how that jealousy hits? Boy, let me tell you something. You think somebody's your friend, wait till you start doing better than them. Then you'll find out. I promise you. Wait till your life gets better. If you want to know if someone's your friend, when you start doing better, if they're happy for you, they're your friend. If they're jealous and envious, they're not your friend. And when God shows you that, cut them off. See, I'm at the point now, if you're not real, I don't have time for you. I'm sorry. This is who I am. And if I start getting to know you and there's all this drama, I'm cutting you off. I don't have time for that. I have worked too hard to be where I am. These Jewish leaders, they knew the book, just like religious leaders of today, but they didn't know God. They were telling all the people that the Messiah was coming, and when he showed up, they hated him. And they're like, you're not holy enough. Why are they not washing their hands? Why aren't you doing this? See, religious people always point out the things you're not doing. People who really know God, they don't focus on you, they focus on themselves. I don't care what you do. I'm going to walk by example. What you do doesn't bother me. It's what I do that's important. I need to make sure that the man in the mirror and me have this agreement, that the integrity that I proclaim to have, I keep. Because I can't be fake anymore. And these Jewish leaders hated the attention he got so much that they plotted to have him killed. And the disciples are hiding. They're in this garden that nobody else knows about, but one of their own knew where it was, and that was Judas. And Judas went and sold Jesus out. Took the guards under the cover of night. They didn't arrest Jesus in the public because they knew it would be an outpour of people who disagreed with it. People would be outraged. So they did it at night. And they held his trial in secrecy. And not a lot of people were allowed to be there to see it because they knew he had such a following. They knew, many of the crowds of Jewish people, they believed he was the Messiah. And they didn't know how to handle this. So at night, they arrest him. They take him. The Jewish leaders at the time take him to the high priest. They question him a little bit. Peter and John, when you're reading the book of John and it says the disciple that Jesus loved, he's talking about himself. I don't know why he wrote it that way, but all throughout the book of John, it will say, and the disciple that Jesus loved, when he's saying that, he's talking about himself. That's John. So Jesus gets arrested. John and Peter follow from a distance, and they are watching all of this take place. They're watching John had some connections, it said, with the high priest, so he was able to get him and Peter in this courtyard that was closed off, and they were able to watch. And now, not only is Jesus not putting up an argument, but when he goes, he doesn't even defend himself. He doesn't even argue. And they're sitting back and they're watching this. Why is this important? You do not now realize what I am doing, but later you will understand. See, they are blown away by what is going on. What do you do when something knocks you off your feet and you are now flat on the ground and you don't know what in the world is going on? It's easy to have faith when things are going well. What happens when your best friend dies, when somebody dies in a car wreck, when somebody you knew for years gets sentenced to 40 years? What happens when somebody that you've loved for years gets cancer and they're just fading away right in front of you? What happens when the job you've been depending on for all these car notes and all this mortgage and it's gone? What happens then? And that is what is going on right in front of their eyes. And they don't understand. Jesus one time told them, he said, I have many things left to teach you, but now is not the time. But when I die and the Spirit comes, he'll lead you into all truth. In other words, right now, y'all are just at addition and subtraction. I have some calculus to teach you, but you're not ready for that right now. We need to build this up step by step so that later you can grow and mature and you will comprehend the things that you don't comprehend right now. That is what this is about. They are looking from a distance. And Pilate, he has this issue because the Jewish leaders bring Jesus up there and they don't really have any legitimate reason why they want him to be killed. And he's like, what is his crime? So he goes, and he knows the Jewish leaders are really pressing for this. So Pilate goes and asks him, and he says, are you the king of the Jews? And Jesus says this. Jesus says, is that your own idea, or did somebody else talk to you about me? Did you come up with that by yourself, or have you been listening to the rumors about me? Boy, when I read that the other day, that is powerful. That's how we are in society. The things we choose, the opinions we have, are they opinions that we've come up on our own, or has somebody else influenced our thoughts? Jesus is like, is this your idea that you're asking me this, or did somebody else tell you some bad things about me? Have you ever heard really bad things about someone, and then when you met them, they really weren't that bad? And then you heard some amazing things about someone, and then when you met them, they were a snake? That's because we're so influenced by the opinions of others. And Jesus is like, where did you get that idea from? Did you come up with that on your own? And I think we live in a society where people don't even know how to think on their own anymore. We just want other people to tell us what to think. We don't know how to think. We want people to tell us what to think. And when anything goes against what we've been taught to think, we reject it, even if it's right in front of our face. People who are extreme religion, extreme politics, when they find out someone on their team has done something wrong, they could have evidence all over the place. They're like, he didn't do it. Let a politician on your political team get accused of something like rape, and they'll be like, he didn't do it. And then let somebody else on the other team get accused, and they're like, he did it even without evidence. See, that's because they're sold out to the idea. Don't ever be sold out to a cause or to an idea that when truth is revealed, you're unwilling to change your mind. I made a correction at the beginning of this. Why? Because I'm human. I make mistakes when I'm speaking all the time. And if you're unwilling to evaluate your life like that, then you will never grow. If you have never looked in the mirror and said, man, I really screwed that up, then I can't trust you. If you do not apologize, if you don't ever say you're wrong, then that is unrealistic to live in this world to do that. But many people are like that. Many people will have an excuse for why they do what they do. They will justify their bad behaviors because of what you did. I know this is wrong, but she did this. See, that's when you start justifying your behaviors, you're going down a slippery slope. At some point, my friend who passed away decided that it would be okay if he went out and drank, even though he was still on paper. And not only did he go out and drink, but he got behind the wheel of a vehicle. And that night, he got pulled over and he got a DWI. And when he got that DWI, everything changed. He was now being revoked in 2 cities. He had his 4th or 5th DWI, and he was probably facing, I want to say, at least 8 to 15 years, however long it would take him to make parole. So that choice that night, when you pre-justified, you know what, this is okay. Everything that was bad in his life, and he was struggling before this happened. After that happened, it's over. After that happened right there, now he's not going to be able to keep his business. Now he's not going to be there with his daughter. And if he did 8 years, she'd be from 8 to 16. You got to understand, the pressure of all of that is overwhelming, and I relate to it. Because I remember what it's like to be waiting for a court date and to be unaware of what exactly they're going to do to me. And your lawyer says this, and then you go back to another court hearing, and then he says something different, and then it's always, and you're just sitting there going, what is going to happen? And the stress of that in your gut, man, I used to dry heave. I mean, the stress of not knowing what was going to happen is overwhelming. And he decided to use, and he OD'd, and it took his life. And now his daughter doesn't have a dad waiting to get out of prison. She has a dad that is now going to have a future. And you know what? Part of me is going to be even more driven now because of this. Because I work with broken people all the time. This is what I give my life to. All of you who know me know I joke all the time. But when it's time to be serious, I can. I really don't do small talk. If you want to talk about something deep, let's get in it. That's just how I am. Because I've been through so much, and I have felt like no one ever had answers for me. I went to doctors who had me all medicated up, or I didn't even know what I was doing. Had all these people say they could help me, and none of them helped. The only thing that has ever worked for me is God, and that is it. The things that I tell you right now, God told me when I was by myself. The reason I'm sharing it with you is because it worked with me. That's the only reason. I know it works because I used to be bound, and now I'm not bound anymore. Come on, go. I used to be enslaved. And now those things that held me back for so long, they're no longer an issue in my life. When you are struggling, as we all do, if you don't have at least 1 or 2 people that you can be honest with, you're not going to make it. I want you to know this. I mentor a lot of people. Some of them go back. Some of them are not drug addicts. Some of them are men in prison who have sold dope all their life, and now they're trying to do something different. And if they go back to selling dope, they know they can call me, and I'm not going to judge them. Because if you can't be honest about what you're going through, then who can help you? I'm not going to criticize you. I know people who have got off probation, went back to using and selling dope, and every now and then they call me. You know why? Because I'm not going to criticize them. You be whatever you want to be. I just want to show love and encouragement. Because many people showed me love and encouragement, and it wasn't time. They tried, but it didn't work. But when I got sober, I remembered all the effort that they had put in before. You ever had somebody tell you something and it really didn't make sense till later? And then later, it made more and more sense. That's what I do. I just sow seed. Maybe some of the people in rehab, maybe they're not ready yet. Maybe they'll be ready next time. Maybe they'll be ready next time. But here's the problem. With fentanyl and everything that's going on, there may not be a next time. So there's a pressure. When I was younger, people OD'd on heroin every now and then. They might have got some bad cocaine every now and then. But they didn't die like they're dying now. And so there's this extreme pressure in every time that I talk. Because I want to get across that dude did not believe he was going to die that night he died. He didn't. And you can make one mistake, and once you cross that line, there are lines in life. Once you cross them, you can't uncross them. Once you have made that decision, now you are in this hole. And if you're like me, you screw up majorly. I'm in a really big hole with the state right now. 10 years probation, 10 years TDC, 2 years state jail. Like, I know people who did worse stuff than me. They just didn't do as much as I did. And they've been in and out, and they're already off paper. And I got all these years left. Why? Because I was so hard-headed, I didn't listen back then. For some reason back then, the idea of changing was I never even thought that. I was like, it didn't matter. My house was on fire. And I'm sitting in the living room, and I'm like, so what? I just didn't care. But when you finally wake up and start caring, now you have to deal with the damage of what you've done. I say this all the time. You know that TV show Hoarders? That was my life. That was my mind. That was my life. You know, when they go in the rooms and there's stuff piled up to the ceiling and it's gross and it's nasty. When you ignore stuff for so long, it becomes so hard. Like that's not a 5-minute clean right there. When they go in their houses, they sometimes have bulldozers and dump trucks because they have let stuff get out of control for so long. When you go back to fix it, that is depending on how long you have been doing what you're doing. That's how complex the situation is going to be. That's how difficult this situation is going to be. And so don't be overwhelmed. Understand you didn't get in this instantly, and it's not going to be fixed instantly. But if you will start cutting simple cords and doing simple things, you will start taking over areas of your problems, and at some point, you'll master the whole. But if you look at the whole and you are just intimidated by it, you're not going to have the encouragement and the motivation needed to go through it. Simple things on a daily basis build up into big things. I didn't want to go back this last time I went back, and I damn sure didn't want to go to safety again. I can tell you that right now. But I was antisocial. I was learning some of this stuff I'm telling you out in the country, and I talked to God even when I was high and drunk. So if you didn't want to hear about God, you didn't want to get high with me, because I'll make you run out my house. I promise you that. Because I would tell people, I'm enslaved, but He has got to set me free. Like you can't talk about God when you're high. And I'm high all the time. So when do I get to talk about Him? I got to be free, and I know He can set me free. And I would tell people I was getting high with, I'm not going to be doing this for the rest of my life. I am not happy right here. I haven't left yet, but pretty soon you will look and see, and I'm not going to be here. God was preparing me. So when it was time for me to be sober, see, I already knew Him. Some people go to AA and they don't believe in God and they don't know God, and so AA introduces them to God. That's not my story. I knew Him out in the wilderness. I knew Him when my life was terrible. There were bullets that should have entered my body that He protected me. There were times that I could have gone left and instead I went right, and if I had gone left, then a car would have hit me and drove through the intersection. There are drive-by shootings that happened in Waco when I was a teenager. I remember standing in a room. My friend was 15 years old. I was probably 14 or 15. He had a baby, and there was a baby bed inside of this room. And I remember standing in that room, him showing me stuff he was putting on the wall. The next day, there was a drive-by shooting, and it didn't hit the baby. But the bullet holes were right in the wall of where I was standing the day before. See, I could go on and on and on like this, but God has been so faithful to me. That's why I'm radical. That's why I can't, no matter what, I know He's got a plan for my life. I know that He protected me for this long for a reason. And no matter what, I can't go back. Even on my worst day, I really don't consider going backwards. Because this right here, y'all are all in my room, in this house, I've never lived like this. Don't let what I'm wearing fool you. Don't let my smile when you see me out fool you. This is brand new. A few Christmases ago, it was a nightmare. And I've only been out of prison 2 years. In November, I'll only be sober 3 years. And I promise you this, if you give this your all, and you give God your all, and you go out and bless people, you got to help other people. You got to give people money. You got to bless people. You got to do things. And when they try to pay you back, you got to say, no, you're not paying me back. I'm giving you what was freely given to me. If you start doing this, the doors will open. If you stay selfish and self-centered and ungrateful, then you will be unhappy, and the only thing that will satisfy your unhappiness will be another drink or another use. Let's go to John chapter 18. Actually, no, we're going to go a little bit further. We're going to go to John chapter... We're going to go to John chapter 20. A little bit further on, John chapter 20, verse 1. Everybody there? Amen. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance. So she came running to Simon Peter and the other disciples, the one Jesus loved, and said, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put Him." So Peter and the other disciples started running for the tomb. Both were running, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He bent over and looked in at the strips of linen lying there, but he did not go in. Then Simon Peter came along behind him and went straight into the tomb. He saw the strips of linen lying there, as well as the cloth that had been wrapped around Jesus' head. The cloth was still lying in its place, separate from the linen. Finally, the other disciple who had reached the tomb first also went inside. he saw and believed. They still did not understand from Scripture that Jesus had to rise from the dead. Then the disciples went back to where they were staying. Now Mary stood outside of the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb and saw two angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and the other at the foot. They asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "They have taken my Lord away," she said, "and I don't know where they have put him." At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize that it was Jesus. He asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who is it you are looking for?" Thinking he was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned toward him and cried in Aramaic. And that word that she cried out means teacher. Look, putting me in drug court, sending me back to safety, it caused me to get out of my shell and get out of the house because I was antisocial, and it put me out around people. I used to not want to have people in my house. I used to not be around anybody. I hated being around people. I had given up on people. I had decided that everyone in this world was worthless and they were not trustworthy. And I want you to understand why I thought that. It's because I'm hanging out with people in the drug world who were worthless and untrustworthy. So of course my view is skewed because look at the people I'm hanging out with. So I'm having this time where I'm disbelieving anybody and I'm not letting anybody in. And I want you to know, when you are isolated and when you are by yourself and you do not let anybody in, it is very, very lonely. Those dogs help me, but they don't speak. And when I'm going through something, they can't give me advice. There's something about just being around other people that makes me feel better about myself. When I see you, it's like a mirror, and I'm reminded of who I am now. You've never seen me high. You've never seen me drunk. The only Ryan you know is the Ryan right now. Only a very few people that are around me right now have ever seen me high or drunk. And I like that because that means I get the opportunity to only be this what I'm showing you. I tell you stories. When I get married, my wife will have never seen me drunk. If I become a father, my kids won't ever have to see the Ryan who goes in and out of prison. See, those days are gone. I can tell you about them, but I have this opportunity to present to you who I am now. And all of that came from you do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand. I didn't realize that God was doing something for me that I would have never chose on my own to get me out of my shell. Saying, I've been teaching you, I've been loving you, I've been helping you behind the scenes. Now it's time to get up and go show other people what I told you. See, I knew for so long He wasn't just teaching me this to keep it to myself. But I look terrible. Like I said, I look like the Walking Dead. If I look like the Walking Dead right now, y'all would not be in this room listening to me. And God let me know you need to take yourself seriously. If you want people to listen to what you're saying, then the package is going to have to change. And if you do not get up and start treating yourself better, then no one's going to listen to what you have to say. So He pushed me out into society again. And because I had to go stand in front of judges and go to court and go to probation and do all this stuff, then I actually had to look presentable because I didn't want people to think I looked crazy. So I started taking care of myself again. I started putting time and effort in what I look like and what I'm doing. And He brought me out and brought me out. And now I work at a rehab and I speak all the time. And now I get to use all the pain that I've been through to relate to other people. And when I see them making it, y'all don't understand. When I see people that are in this room right now or in this city that were once at Promises or maybe they were in drug court, when I see them making it and they're my friend, that helps me a lot because so many people don't make it. Before I end tonight, I want to tell you a story because that friend of mine passed. I want to tell you something about this lady that I once met, and then we will end this. So, in 2009, long before I ever got sober, I was extremely suicidal. I wanted to kill myself every day. Every time I got in the car, I was driving down the highway and I'm arguing with myself about driving into oncoming traffic every single day. And if you pass me on the highway, you would say, that dude's crazy because I'm yelling and screaming at myself. There's part of me that wants to turn and part of me that can't. And I'm telling you, I'm having this extremely difficult battle because I was tormented mentally. And I was like, God, if this is how it's going to be for the rest of my life, and I'm just going to be whooped all day long, then I don't want to live. If this is the only, and now I can't get high or get drunk because they're going to send me off, and that's the only thing that was medicating my pain. And now if I use the medication that shuts it off, then they're going to send me to prison. Now I'm in this big hole, just an enormous hole. Okay, very suicidal in 2009. So A few years pass. I already got dogs. I'm a little bit out of my comfort zone. I'm getting out in society. Overwhelming anxiety to where I didn't ever leave my house for long periods of time. In 2009, I think I only left my house maybe a dozen times. The whole year, I stayed at my house. You understand? And I had this card table, and I had found this box of old toys that I had gotten during Christmases when I was a kid. My younger brother was in jail at the time. I had set this card table up, and I stood up every single one of these toys all over this table. My dad comes early in the morning to let me know he's fixing to go to work. And I'm sitting there at this card table with all these toys standing up looking at me. And my dad opens the door and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to work," but I didn't hear him. And he went and visited my brother later that day, and he said, "Ryan has lost it. I saw him talking to his toys this morning. He's lost it." I didn't even hear him come in. I'm going to tell you what I was doing. I was looking at those toys, and because I have a photographic memory, I remember every Christmas that I got those, and I was trying to remember a time where I wasn't scared. I was trying to remember, have I been like this always? And I was looking at the He-Man, the G.I. Joe, the Star Wars, and I was sitting there and I was deep in thought because I was trying to remember if I've always been this afraid of everything. That's what I was doing. And he goes and tells my brother, "Man, Ryan has lost it. He's talking to toys in the room. He had them all scattered." And I did. I stood them all up. And I remembered every Christmas I got what? Because that's how my mind works. So fast forward a little bit. I'm really, really depressed. I'm really down. I'm really suicidal. And my dad's like, "Hey, look, I think you should get out and do something. So why don't you go volunteer for Meals on Wheels?" And I was like, "Okay." So I went up to Meals on Wheels and I said, "Hey, I can give y'all once a week." And they trained me. It's like a 2.5-hour drive. And I have about 20-something elderly people that I drop food off with. And there was a guy who trained me. And we went to this lady's house. Her name was Judy. I'm not going to say her last name because it's not, I don't want it to be something that somebody gets offended by later, but her name was Judy. And she was in her mid-60s. She had just had a hip replacement. She was in lots of pain. And this guy takes me to the door, and she has a boxer pit bull that is not friendly. Very, very protective of her. And he tells me, but I'm too busy trying to soak everything in. When you're by yourself and you go to this lady's house, do not go in her house, because that dog will kill you. He is very protective. So we just let her come to the front door. Well, when it was my turn to do the route, I had forgotten that. And so she comes to the door, and she's very joyous. I'm depressed. I'm poor me. This lady's in a ripped up 70s house dress. Her dentures are broken. There's holes in the floor. And she's overwhelmingly joyous. "God bless you. Thank you for being here." And she invited me to come in. I didn't remember that the dog was there. So she goes and sits on the couch, and we have this instant connection. This lady and me got really, really close. And she's talking to me. Now, understand, I'm still suicidal. I'm feeling like I'm terrible. I think I'm a bag of nothing. Do you understand me? And she's on the couch and I'm standing there. And then about 30 minutes in, she says, "Do you know what?" She said, "My dog never lets anybody this close to me. You must have Jesus inside of you." And I look over in the corner and there's this dog who's not growling, not barking, not moving, not wagging its tail, staring at me. Just like this. And she said, "Nobody gets this close to me." This started an instant connection with me and her. She was half Native American, half white. Her dad was a Native American who won awards in World War II. I think there was a movie out called Wind Talkers that talked about different Indians who had different Native Americans that had their language, and the Germans couldn't break that code. They broke every code we had except they didn't know the Native American language. Her dad was one of those people. Her dad was an amazing military guy. He was a terrible dad. You ever have somebody who has all these awards and they're really good, but behind the scenes they're really not a good person? And it's hard because everybody celebrated her dad, but behind the scenes he was a terrible dad. So when she was 18 years old, she left the house. And she married this guy who was extremely abusive. They had a 4-year-old daughter. He drank all the time. And one day, he's drunk, and she's like, "Look, let me drive." And she said, "Ryan, I tried to get the keys from him. But he was so abusive, and I just surrendered, and I just got in." So she got in the passenger, he got in the front, and the girl's in the back in a car seat. He was drunk, he ran a red light, A car hit them. They flipped upside down. On impact, the daughter dies in the back and her husband. And she said, Ryan, I'll never forget this. She said, Ryan, I'm upside down in this car and I'm looking in the back of my car and I can see my daughter's hair hanging from the ceiling and she's dead. And she said, Ryan, I think about that every single day. Why did I not make him give me the keys? See, this is what when I talk to y'all about struggle, this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, of course she felt bad about that. How can she not? Because the choice of her not getting the keys from him that day cost him his life and her daughter. And she kept going over in her mind that she should have done something more. Boy, you got to understand something. Me and her got real close. I don't know if you've ever had somebody you just met and in a matter of months y'all got really, really close. But I told her about being molested by my uncle and she told me about being gang raped behind a bar. This lady had a rough life and we were really, really, really close. Really close. I spoke at her funeral. And that was one of the first times I had spoken publicly for many years. On the side, which is not what you're supposed to do at Meals on Wheels, I would cook food. I'm pretty decent in the kitchen. And so certain people that I dropped food off, I would cook extra food for them. So I had fried pork chops, I had some Brussels sprouts and some rice. And I was going to bring this on top of the Meals on Wheels food. I was going to give it to her. And all I wanted to do was stop by H-E-B and pick up some fruit. And it was summertime. And I had that big display of everything that's on sale right when you go in. And they had this big quart, not a pint, but a quart of blueberries. And I grabbed it and I paid for it and I left. She was the first house on my route. So I gave her the food and I left and I said, when I get done with my route, I'll come back. So I make my 2.5 hours. I come back. I open the door. She's laying on the couch with her hand on her stomach. And that whole container of blueberries is empty on the floor. And she said, Ryan, I know I shouldn't have eaten all of them. But you don't understand, I haven't eaten a blueberry in over 10 years. That rocked me. See, that was nothing to me. I just stopped by the store. This lady was so broke, living on fixed income, that she never had bought. She said, I haven't eaten. So when I started eating them, they were so good, I just ate all of them. This is a huge thing. She said, and it's going to rock me later, but I loved every one of them. And that day, something changed for me. That day, it let me realize that the simple things that you do for other people, it makes you feel like you actually are somebody. That wasn't a big deal to me. It didn't cost me a lot of money. But to her, that was a big deal. She got diagnosed with leukemia. She had 2 weeks to live. She asked me to go with her, and we picked out her casket. She wanted to do it. I think it's weird, but that's what she wanted. So we went and picked her casket out, and she made me promise to tell the mortician to not bury her in a brassiere. She's like, don't let them do that. Better not have a brassiere on when I die. And I'm like, okay, I got it. I'll let them know. It was weird, but I did what she asked me, okay? She asked me to speak at her funeral. And I got up because her family came from all over the country. Me and her got real close. And right before she died, she had about 2 weeks from the time she knew to the time she passed. And I'm rocked because I don't have a relationship with my mom. And so this lady was like my mom. Do you understand? Like this, I was like this. If I got rich, I would have made her rich with me. Do you understand me? And when she could see that I'm taking this real bad. And she said, Ryan, look, I have been in pain for all these years and I don't want to be in pain anymore. I want God to take me home. This is good. I'm going to go pick my casket out. And to me, I'm one of these let's only talk faith. Come on, we can give it. And she's like, Ryan, look, I have been paying for all these years. She said, I got this hip replacement. They told me it would quit hurting in 6 months. And it's been 2 years and it still hurts. I had a CD player that I made a mixtape and we listened to the Temptations and Otis Redding. And she's like, how did you know I like all this music? I said, because I know music. And that night, 2 days before she passed, she got up and she said, the doctor said I'm not supposed to do this, but I want you to dance with me tonight. So we danced in all this pain. And she told me, she said, Ryan, in life, you're going to fuck up. That's what she told me. She said, you're going to make major mistakes, but you have got to learn to forgive yourself. She said, you are going to have these things that you do wrong, and if you don't let it go, you will never get up. She said, I have been living in all of this regret for all of these years, for all of this stuff. And I'm telling you right before I die that when you screw up, you have got to forgive yourself. And she said, and when people die, you got to move on. She said, because when people die, if you stay stuck in that area, then the sun rises and everyone else is going about their business and you're still stuck in this moment. Do not anchor yourself. If you're going through hell right now, do not anchor yourself in this. You got to keep moving forward. And then I went over there. It was during Johnny Manziel's football career. And I went over there and her son was over there. And they're just screaming at the TV. And she's having the time in her life watching this football game. And he went to go to the bathroom. And she leaned over to me and she said, Ryan, I want you to know something. I don't really even like football. But she said, but you know what? He does. And she said, when you love somebody, sometimes you do stuff with them that you don't like to do, but you do it with them because they like it. She said, don't throw a fit about it. Don't act like I don't even want to be here. She said, I am in here enjoying this because he loves it. And she said, Ryan, that's how you love people. When you love somebody, you do stuff with them, maybe that you don't like. See, these words of wisdom that she was giving me, I'll never forget that. Never forget that in my life. I have felt finally like I'm doing something over these last few years. And it has nothing to do with money, and it has nothing to do with anything other than I'm actually using all the pain that I've been through to help somebody else out. If you want to be satisfied now that you're sober, then you need to go help somebody else out. And I know I said this last time. So we start off helping other alcoholics because we want to be sober. But at some point, that should turn into you have compassion for your fellow man. At some point, you should be helping people out because you love them. Not just to stay sober. That's too much of a selfish motive. At some point, your selfish heart needs to be formed into compassion and love for other people. And if that's not your motive, then I don't trust you. I don't want, if you have been sober 30 years, but you're a jerk, you can't teach me nothing. I'm glad you're sober, but you're not happy. You're a jerk to everybody. If you don't have what I want, you can't teach me nothing. That's what AA says. If you have decided you want what we have, and you are willing to go to any length, well, I have to decide that what you have is something that is appealing to me. And if you're unhappy and you're a jerk, you're not going to teach me anything. But I can tell you this, the joy that I have today, it makes the idea of getting high unappealing. I used to use the dope to kill the torment and the pain, and now I have this thing called peace that I've never had, and that peace is so amazing that it makes everything else that I used to do unappealing. Amen. I end this tonight by simply saying this. If you have screwed up, maybe you're in a hole right now that nobody knows about. Maybe you've been doing stuff you shouldn't have been doing. Maybe you're depressed. Maybe you're suicidal. Maybe you're unhappy. If you are struggling, pick up the phone. Reach out to somebody else so that we don't have to go to your funeral. And if you want to get your mind out of you, go out and help somebody else. Go do Meals on Wheels once a week. I promise you it'll change your life. These people are broke. They have no family. And you're one of the only people they get to see. And I remember dropping off that and seeing all these joyous people. And I remember getting in my car because I talked to myself and looking in the rearview mirror and saying, you don't have any reason to complain whatsoever. This lady is super joyous and you're over here crying and complaining. See, that rocked me. That changed me. I love helping broken people because people went out of their way to help me. And that's the whole point. Jesus says, as I have loved you, so now you go out and love. Just like I did. I washed your feet. I did all of this. You don't understand what I'm teaching you now, but later you're going to understand. And he said, not only am I telling you what to do, but I've already shown you what I want you to do. And because I've shown you, I want you to follow in my footsteps. Right now in life, you may be going through something where you are like, I don't understand this. Hold on. Do not give yourself permission to fall again. Do not go backwards. Do not run from this, even when it's hard. Like right now, it's hard. You know what I've been doing? I've been talking to people all day long for the last few days. I've been in contact with over 20 people. They're crying. I'm crying. This has been rough. But you know what? I'm okay right now. And the only reason I'm okay is because I've been able to talk it out with other people. I am leaning on them right now. And I know that in the future, they're going to have to lean on me. This thing is a cycle. But I promise you, if you give God your all, He will make your life joyous and make this thing worth going. Let's end in prayer. Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for my life. Thank you for all of the friends that are in this room. Thank you for truth. Thank you for freedom. Thank you for all that you've done for us. Let our light so shine that we bring people to you. And let us show love in this dark and twisted and cold world. Let us be an encouragement to those around us. And let us shine bright as your children. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.